welcome to the point. You are here because you are uniquely talented and gifted, and you know it. You're encouraging, you're positive and uplifting to yourself. And when you find yourself being otherwise, you catch yourself and you desire something different. And you do what you can to turn around negative ideations and thoughts and work it with a different way of thinking that acknowledges what you want to focus on, that you want to grow and want to have more of in your life. And I know this because that's the kind of people that I attract and that I draw into this podcast. You have been so amazingly wonderful with your feedback and your encouragements that I just keep going and going. You know, last week you got to hear about a couple different viewpoints on strengths and the importance of looking at not just strengths, but what's great about you, like what's truly uniquely amazing about you, and a handful of different ways to consider that and really look for it, right? To be intentional about how you're moving forward. And, you know, next week you're going to get to hear about how to protect the forward movement you make once you have the awareness. Today, what you're going to spend a little bit of time considering, listening to, taking notes on, and, you know, really thinking, you know, allowing this to absorb into your way of being and your thought process is some unique ways that you can develop the strengths and the gifts and the talents that you have towards an outcome, a desired outcome. And one of the most important things that you can do is to have intention in what you're doing. How many times have you ended up somewhere and that was yourself, that was the talk? How'd I end up here? And maybe that's in a relationship. Maybe it's a situation at work or with family. A feeling that you're experiencing. How did I end up feeling this again? Right? Maybe you hear yourself say that. And you look in the mirror and you say, what are you doing and thinking? How could you have let this happen again? Right? It's absolutely okay that you go through that. And here's the great news. You don't ever have to do that again with any of it. You don't ever have to feel that way again if you choose to not feel that way again. You can find a way to move forward using your gifts and talents and find ways for benchmarks. You can find the benchmarks that keep you from going down that road any further than when you need to. And one of the number one things you can do is notice the awareness, gain the awareness of what you're doing and what your intentions are. It's important that you have some understanding and clarity around what you don't want as well. But if that's the only kind of motivation you have, it will only take you so far towards your goal. If you find yourself moving towards a goal to not do something or to do something, and you're running out of steam and out of motivation, that typically means that your motivation of not wanting something is running out of steam, and you haven't found enough clarity around what you do want. You haven't designed and developed the idea of where you're going well enough to motivate you forward. Now, I had a mentor a number of years ago that taught people how to dream. And he was having one of the saddest days I had him seen in so long. And I was like, man, what is wrong? And his answer was amazing. You might find it amazing. His answer was, I have to find something else to motivate myself. I was so excited for so long, striving for that. And he wanted a really significant recreational vehicle, like a diesel bus that was really super good quality that he could drive around the country. And He didn't want just an RV, or he didn't want just a trailer. He wanted a bus, a tour bus kind of thing that he could take around the country with his family and friends and do other things. Once he had what he wanted, and custom made and all these things, he was sad because that dream had fueled him for so long that he was sad when it was gone. Well, I gave some thought to that, right? That brought up some ideas. What do you think of when you hear that? What solutions pop into your mind right away? Right? It's maybe you are better off keeping a pipeline of ideas of things that you want. If all we know is what we want is the next thing we want, again, we're not protecting our motivation or our intention. And it's nice if something physical can motivate us and keep us excited. Wanting to drive that thing was so much fun. Wanting to drive a Ferrari, wanting to drive a really fun car, that can be motivating. You want to be motivated? Let's talk about motorcycles. I'll do that all day long. But physical things, you get them and they're gone. And once you have them, you have them. And maybe there's more exciting things to do with how you take care of it, where you drive it, how you cook in it, whatever it is. You can have a lot of continuing ongoing excitement, but the drive from it's gone. So what the lesson to pull from that is create a greater vision and understanding of what you want in life, and create that picture with so much detail that you're thinking even what is the impact of your life well beyond you being here. So think in what you might consider what you might not consider realistic. Think in what you might consider unrealistic, and then consider what if it were realistic and see what happens. We work on plans of 100 years, 99 years. My coach, that when I was going through Upgrade, and I'm working with Upgrade and William and Michael, and went to 100 years, and that was a challenge. They have stories of moving forward and talking through 1,000 years, creating an even larger vision for people of what they want to accomplish or what they want the result of their life to be. Here's the magic. You get to decide if what you want to focus on is the RV or the bus that you want in the next year, 6 months. That if that's the goal you want to have, that can be the goal you want to have. That can be the goal you choose. When it's done, if you're still motivated, great. But if not, that's the clue to go bigger. So many people do 5-year goals, 10-year goals. Where do I want my finances to be for retirement? And some people start planning that when they're in their teens even. So if you're planning your retirement and you're in your teens, you might want to start planning your retirement for 200 years, because I was reading studies the other day from major universities that say that there are people already alive today. They believe that there are people already alive today that will live to 300 years old or more. So because of the advancements in science and medicine and what understanding more about aging and anti-aging and what causes aging, that there are people alive today that will live to 300 years or more. So it might become realistic to think in terms of 100, 200, 300 years, and maybe you don't want to think about that or buy into that or choose it to be true for you, and all of that's okay. The magic here is you get to choose wherever you start and stop this process and what you choose to motivate you. You could even choose to be away from motivated and see how that works. So the idea is motivation. This idea of motivation comes from more than just one thing, and understanding it fully helps. So it's good to know what you don't want. It's good to, you've heard me say that emotions are delivering messages, right? So, and it's good to lean into them, right? Don't be a victim or guilty of your own mentality of bypassing feelings. It's, that's called spiritual bypass. Lean into the experiences you're having that are not comfortable and learn to embrace the feedback you're receiving so you don't have to repeat it. If you take the lessons from life based on the feelings, which are delivering lessons or delivering a message that there's a lesson to learn, then you get to move forward and do that. So as you do that, consider what you're great at. Consider how you're wired and what's been working best for you when you've wanted to get things done in the past. Consider those things that you did last week around when you felt most fulfilled and what was motivating you, what was working well, and start writing down and listing what those things are. If you've taken the Clifton Strengths Assessment, you can take the sentences from the talents out of the theme descriptions and personalize them and turn them into sentences and statements of intention that will help you move forward in your greatest self, and make this minor adjustments to consider whether or not you should pull back on one of your gifts and use it more intentionally and cautiously, or if you should go full power on with a strength. Excuse me. In that case, all 34 of the themes are strengths, and you can move forward using any of them easily if you're really filtering them through your primary top strengths. So in the other ways of looking at strengths, as far as what you love doing and what you're great at, what other people see you as being a specialist in, maybe it's something you've learned and trained yourself in that took an education, and that's become a strength and a talent and a gifting. Think on those things and consider how that could help you design, how that could motivate you to design what you want, and start making the minor adjustments to move forward. Now, key to moving forward is to begin the visualization process. Visualizing something you're not connected to as a reality becomes fantasy. It's okay to have a vision, a dream, or a desire that could be considered fantasy if you don't think it's realistic to get there. The way to go about that is to then boil it all the way down to things happening along the way and begin visualizing the actions it would take and the ways you're going to move forward towards that goal. So you don't have to sit in fantasy, and that can actually be more damaging towards how you move forward towards something. But developing your talents by moving towards something you want can be done by thinking about what you want, allowing it to be big enough to maybe be considered fantasy, but then bringing it back down into steps and stages that you can connect to emotionally, and begin visualizing the steps it will take to start moving in that direction. It's no longer a fantasy when you can imagine the types of feelings you'll have in that new situation. We can have epiphanies all day long about what's amazing. We can sit in groups and talk about what's great about you and people around you and have so much fun. But what happens when that becomes the norm? What happens when the breakthrough is the everyday experience? Then what's going to offer that elated feeling of excitement? As we move forward towards things, something that was exciting before is no longer exciting because it's normal. And we wouldn't necessarily say, oh my gosh, this is amazing, because we're just used to it. We're accustomed to it. You might say tomorrow, if you earned $1 million or found $1 million or were given $1 million, wow, I got $1 million today. But if you started earning $1 million a day, every day, how long would it take for that to become the norm and not be as exciting anymore? And what would be the new feelings you would embrace and become accustomed to? What would be the challenges you'd face in trying to manage, monitor, regulate what was happening in your life with that type of resources? So when you can start considering it a norm and not an elation, Now you're starting to get a little bit farther along the way. Developing your unique talents and gifts, you can boil down to these simpler actions. Allow yourself the dream and the fantasy and something to be a little bit too big, and then work your way towards it by beginning to consider. And if you're struggling with that, get a coach. Get a coach that's wired towards supporting you and assisting you in finding your purpose and looking at your strengths and really looking at ways to move forward with your best self, and take the time to do the nuance. Now, you'll need to do a couple of things along the way. First is, I want you to trust yourself, and I want you to consider that in the doing comes the understanding on this. Know that you're going to walk into it, and your doubt can easily creep in and say, man, what's the real value of this? Come on. This seems so silly. Trust that you really are uniquely amazing. Trust that there's amazing, easier ways to do things than what you're doing now. And take the steps to visualize these smaller things and these nuances, and consider, what if I did things just a little bit different? It's a common story in the workplace where there's a boss that can't stand having to do any type of performance management. We resent, you might find yourself resenting someone for not doing well enough to the point where it demands your attention and needing to document and do other things. And that can be a problem, right? You end up showing up in a way that's more aggressive, angry, frustrated, or whatever else. That's not who you really are. That's not an uncommon story. It happens to a lot of people. Or, I don't want to have to set boundaries. I want you to respect them whether I set them or not. And I don't really want to have to stand up for myself because I want to be kind and easygoing and whatever. So you may end up resenting someone that rubs you the wrong way, that crosses certain lines where you might not if you learn just to hold a boundary somewhere else and not worry so much about setting things, just by how do we hold these things, honor and respect these things in our normal actions and behaviors and words. Things become a lot easier when we do that, and giving yourself the gift of allowing yourself the nuance to try different ways of moving forward with those types of things can become really, really valuable. Something you might have struggled with and found a lot of angst and upset with, you'll suddenly look back and realize, man, that's easy now. Know that doubt may show up and move forward anyway, understanding that that's just a part of the process. Your logical brain will want to step in and say, could this, and what about, and well, I don't know. Trust the process and move through, that you will learn and understand something until you get the aha moment. When you hear an aha moment, when you get that epiphany and that excitement, then consider, what if this became my norm? And in that consideration, that alone can make all the difference. Then set an intention of, what would it take and how do I move forward to allow that to be the norm? And what could I change about what I say, what I do, or how I think? My perspective, my consideration of others. What is it that I could tweak or change based on what I'm great at that would make it easy, simple, calm? Just, I flow right into what it is. Your flexibility becomes so strong. Your adaptability, your ability to adjust and shift becomes so strong that things that used to drive you crazy just don't bother you anymore. So this is the gift of really thinking in the way of strengths and how to do that. But it's important you trust first that there are really unique things about you that if you make minor adjustments to and visualize how that will look, feel, and show up in your life, that will make a difference. And in that doing will come the understanding. There's one last thing I'll share about, and that's this idea of, and Daryl Fazaro, my good friend, has done really neat cards on that you can get from his website. I hand them out all the time, called Yet, and they're Yes. And he has a handful of different cards with different really cool messages. But this idea of left foot yes. we've been experiencing this, when we started experimenting and trying to prove this, going into the Veterans Administration, looking for benefits and trying to work with doctors and nurses and get medical help and other things. And we were walking into these environments and these experiences that felt dark and weren't fun. And Daryl ran across this reading about somebody that a scientist that studied this idea that if you say yes every time your left foot hits the ground, it activates the right side of your mind, and you're open to new possibilities and positivity. It makes this shift in what you'll allow in and what you'll perceive in others, and it shifts the entire environment and causes more positive experiences. Now, seems silly. I can think of a number of things I thought about it, but what's happened is we've proven it works. So if you doubt anything about what I'm saying, try that left foot yes, and try anytime you're going to walk into a situation that you think might be difficult or challenging or something that would drive you crazy. Maybe it's walking into a particular retailer. Maybe it's going to a doctor's appointment, a dentist's appointment. Maybe it's going to the motor vehicle department. Whatever it is, every time your left foot hits the ground, say the word yes on your way into one of these appointments and see what happens differently. Try just doing it for a couple of hours throughout the day and see if it changes your mood, your mode, or anything else. I didn't notice a huge change right away. I did notice that there were a major difference, but that could have been a fluke. It takes time for things to be proven for me sometimes. But when I really learned it was after forgetting and having a miserable experience. Then I went, oh, I forgot that. And I did it again, and everything turned around. So take it for proving and use the tool and see what happens. And do that as well with your strengths. Do that as well with ideas for new ways of thinking and being, moving towards your goals and things that you want, and starting to visualize what that will look like to show up that way. Maybe it's a smoother emotional frame throughout the day. Maybe it's less reaction. Maybe it's more appropriate reaction to certain things. And start imagining what that looks like. Visualize the actions and behaviors of being in your best self, being in flow with what you're trying to achieve, and see what starts to happen. So if you want help with that, reach out to me, send me a DM. You guys have been so good about reaching out and giving feedback and asking questions. DM me and we can jump on a call, or you can get access to the Designing Your Strengths book, and you can get some assistance and support in walking through that. It's a kind of a call to action. I'm curious. So I'm considering what to do with the Facebook groups that I had started that I haven't done much with. We've been so busy engaging in healthcare and in these health systems that I haven't done as much with these Facebook groups that are for individuals. Let me know if you want to keep those, and if you want to join the Designing Strengths Facebook group, let me know. If you'd rather have somebody ask me to do a Telegram group instead, we could get some excitement going there. We'd start up whatever you'd like, and maintain whatever it is. We just whatever you want to participate in is what we'll consider. So DM me, let me know. If nothing else, we can jump on a call and spend a few minutes, and I can help you through and answer some questions. But always here to add value and to move you further in the direction you'd like to go. That's the idea here. And so blessings to you. Make it a beautiful day. Make it a beautiful week, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of The Point with me, Jeff Spikes. The greatest compliment you could give me is liking, loving, and sharing this episode with all your friends. So please, if you're on Spotify, iHeart, or iTunes, leave a 5-star rating and review. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. Make sure to tag me. I love hearing from you, the listeners of this show. The links for all my social and iTunes are in the show notes. Also, if you'd like to engage with me in anything related to my coaching, consulting, speaking, or programs, please visit jeffspikes.com for everything you would need to know to engage with me offline. And lastly, thank you for your time, your attention, and your consideration. This is The Point.